This fan base is amazing. The city of Cincinnati is amazing, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Desmond fakes a handoff, runs to the right. He's got all sorts of room to the 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown! Bearcats! 20, 25, toward the middle of the field at the 35, and he is gone! Trey Tucker will take it 98 yards to the house. A nip at night knockout as the Bearcats send a message to the college football world. Did you see that?
Howdy, folks. Welcome back to VIVA LA CATS, the Cincinnati podcast repping the 1012 network. I am your host, Justin Hiles, accompanied by my great friend, Steve Maurer, and a special guest today, Nick, Steve's brother. And we cover all things Bearcats every single week, and we review games live on Twitter, X now, Spaces. So if you like this episode, please share us with your friends, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on all your favorite platforms. Steve, Nick, good to have you boys on.
It's great to be here. Heard so much about it. Followed you guys for a while. It's a joy to be here, fellas.
My dad's been picking on me for not having anyone from my immediate family on the podcast. So, Nick, you are welcome.
I'm not trying to be a nepotism thing, but I'm just happy to be here.
Hey, Nepo babies seem to be doing all right. Just ask Brian Ferentz. He seems to be doing just fine. So no problems there.
Next
Nick,
on the pod, Steve's father.
Don't
tempt it like that.
Don't tempt it. Yeah. Nick, why don't you just tell us real quick how you got connected with UC Sports and how, obviously, you know me, but how you know Justin as well.
Oh, sure. Well, I know Justin through you, so it's easy enough for that one. But no, I got connected same way you did, working for the football team. Did a little bit of stuff with basketball here and there, doing really minor stuff like helping set up practices, whatever, but like mostly doing football games, traveling across the country for them. I was there. My last game for them was the Cotton Bowl. So that was fun and also very sad, but, lifelong fan, really just got all the way into it during my years, it's volleyball games, some basketball, men and women's games, had some friends on the tennis team. So always stayed involved with Bearcats athletics and very excited for the Big 12 move.
Perfect. Well, that pretty much sums it up. We've all got the inside connections here, and that is Viva La Cats. So, if you want the inside scoop, I guess we don't. We're all kind of disconnected from it now.
Inside the building.
We know
formerly
people
insiders.
Yeah. Right.
We can text people. We won't get responses, but we could text Wid, see what's happening.
Well, we are knee deep in the middle of camp. Dan Horde has been giving us lots of updates. That is the inside guy to be following right now if you're not already following him. And if you don't know him, you should. Don't know how else to explain that to you. It's been really interesting to watch kind of the QB battle. I think we're still pretty clear in a way that Emory is going to be that starting spot. And so it'd be nice. Let's see how this works out. But what are you guys' first impressions? And do you think that Emory's going to see success this year, or do you think it might just be another stop and another, gap fill for the Bearcats?
Steve, you first.
Well, I don't know. I do think the feature on him that they posted on the social media pages was cool, and it seems like he does, just want that chance. It was weird to have Arizona State just not give him a chance to run the ball last year, and I think I do think our offensive line has potential to be good, but it's more likely than not that he will have to scramble and make plays on his own because he might be running for his life a little bit back there. But it has been good though to have Brady Drogish just look good right away, and it's just been like a real point to see that, oh yeah, they're featuring Drogish, and he's been like running pretty well. He had that 99-yard touchdown in the scrimmage on Saturday, and he's been throwing some good balls. So Nick, it's not impossible to see them start with a veteran and then, bring out the young guy. But do you think that's likely, or do you think it's going to be Emory?
No, so I think it's Emory all the way through unless we get the injury. However, we kind of saw last year, Ben Bryant led it most of the way, injured in game 10, 11 later in the season. And we see Prater for 2 or 3 games. And everybody all of a sudden got quiet about not wanting him anymore. No, I like him. I think he'll be all right at wide receiver. I think Emory is the way to go. But definitely going to get a lot of reps in for Jokic if he's going to be our next year guy. So no, I like Emery. I think he's got more pocket presence than our guys last year. Definitely a better ability to like read where the defense is coming if he needs to run. So I think he'll be good. I think it's hard to tell the future, but I think we'll like him here.
Yeah, and I agree too. Like, I mean, Emery's got the fit that Satterfield is looking for. That's why he was, handpicked to come here. But on top of that, you see kind of the flashes that Evan Prater had. Emory Jones has exhibited a lot of the same, but at the P5 level. And so bringing in a P5 experienced quarterback, albeit with the trials and tribulations he's had, I think it only bodes well to be, to have that experience on your team and to be ready to, go into some of these rock fights that you're going to have to deal with and have a quarterback who does have a bit more awareness and who can move his legs and have that throughout the season. And again, if that's your guy, if Brady were to be your guy too, you have that option on both sides. And so having that dual threat is really nice. And I would hope that is a cemented part of the backfield here for the Bearcats. As far as depth goes, so we've looked at sort of the way that this whole roster has shaked out through transfer portal, offseason, new recruits, everything. We've got a good idea of what we're looking at. Does the lack of depth concern you for this season?
Ooh,
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. You go ahead.
No, you're fine.
Okay, well, that's tough because we lost Bryant to the transfer and we lost Prater to becoming wide receiver. If he threw out his arm
all around.
Right.
About, like,
Oh yeah, no, but so let's just start with the quarterbacks since we were there. I think having two main guys, I'm sure we have two more that we don't really talk about a lot, is a little concerning. I mean, we lost a lot of good guys these last 2 years. It's going to be tough. Especially in the transfer portal, but I think that's a game 6 kind of issue. I think we'll be all right until then, at least. But
yeah, I agree. Justin, we just did our over under pod. Check that out, by the way, people. If you haven't listened to it, that was about 2.5 hours of Hummer and Coomer making jokes and making us laugh. So
pretty much.
No, it was a great time. Really enjoyed it. Some good insight in there. He hates the offense more than I do. And obviously we have the SP plus numbers that we're going to go over for the Bearcats. They are not pretty, but I do think that if defense is going to be the strength of this team, that there's it's just going to happen that we might lose a couple of guys, and how are we going to be able to respond to that? And that's my only concern, really. And obviously there's concerns with if the running game doesn't work, if the O-line doesn't gel, and if Emery is not if he is what they said he is, and if he doesn't really transcend expectations. So obviously Nick, I took the over, Justin took the over as well. Yeah, you were talking pre-show. You said you would if you were a betting man, you would take a 6-6 record, right?
Yeah, that seems realistic.
Yeah, and I think it is realistic, especially with Iowa State falling off, and then the back half of our schedule, those last 3 games, that could feature 2 coaches who have been fired, 2 teams who have fired their head coaches, and a Kansas team who might be worn down. So, but yeah, Justin, what do you think about the depth?
Yeah, personally, I think I don't know, on the defensive side of the ball, I'm not too concerned. I think that's going to shake out, pretty okay throughout the season. But yeah, as far as offense, we have so many question marks on the starting line, and it's not necessarily of are these guys good or not. It's how will they all mesh together and how will they gel? And is that chemistry there? And how much can they develop throughout the offseason? And so with those question marks there, it's hard to even know exactly what we have coming out the gate, much less what's behind them at the 2 and the 3. And some of those names are familiar, but for the most part, offensively, most of them aren't. So, I think we're going to do a lot of learning week 1, week 2, week 3, those non-conference games. It's just going to be homework for us guys who are keeping track of that. As far as, the SP plus numbers that you mentioned, Steve, why don't you go ahead and give us those? Because I think that is an interesting way to kind of level this out and see where we are amongst the crowd.
So the numbers are kind of spot on with what we were all thinking. Overall, at 53 for the Bearcats, and Justin, I also put down our opponents, and I want you to pick out the couple of them. You don't have to do them all, but pick out a couple that are interesting to you. But overall, 53, offense 75, which is about what we were at the end of the season last year. So unless it is kind of interesting to see what's going to happen, because maybe Coomer is right that the offense will not be better than it was last year. Defense 23. I think that's a credit to how many guys are back and how many studs we have right now on that defensive side. And if we can just cover up a couple things, get some guys along, I think that can be the rock of this team this year. Projected wins 6.2. And it just depends on, obviously, depth of other teams, but I think that number is really swung a lot with Iowa State losing their starting QB and running back for an indefinite amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, I think, honestly, in my mind, the one that sticks out the most to me would probably be Pitt. I'm surprised that they're as high as they are, personally. And I know, Pitt is a good team. They're quality. It's never going to be a bad win or a bad loss to a team like that. But ultimately, I think that non-conference game really shows the weight that it carries too. And the importance of being able to beat a team like that. Aside from that, honestly, I think on the opposite end of the spectrum, Miami might also be quite surprising to me. You'd of course expect with the MAC that they're going to be farther down the trail, but I don't know. 101 is just like that just proves that game will do literally nothing for you, like nothing at all. And so you win that, great. If you lose that, we're not even going to get into that. I'm not even going to put that out into the ether. Like, that's just no.
Nick, what about you? What's one number that looks interesting there?
I'm looking here. BYU at 51. Now, I mean, them being non-conference for so long, it's always kind of hard to tell. But I had always heard, at least this season, kind of reading through, people were thinking either ESPN or like just fan votes, that they were going to be better this year. But 51 it's interesting. It's kind of middle of the pack. And I know their over/under is 5.5 or 6.5, something like that.
5.5, yeah.
5.5. That's kind of surprising me. I would have thought they'd be a little lower, but I mean, Iowa State looks, like it should be. Oklahoma, I always feel like them and Notre Dame get a little overrated, but at the same time, like they definitely prove their worth when it matters. So they'll be interesting.
Notre Dame, Oklahoma, and Cincinnati, the same amount of college football playoff game wins. How about that?
Oh man, don't bring it back.
Hey, but if we're talking about appearances versus wins, we'll take it, because I mean, I'd rather be 0-1 in the college football playoff than what, like 0-4, 0-5. What even are they? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
a lot.
Yeah. Regardless, I think the thing that I do find interesting across this whole board is that the fact that, like, when you look at our conference schedule, you got 15, 51, 49, 34, 38, 39, 57, 60, 62. We have the weakest strength of schedule. Nobody's going to argue that. And on top of that, the bottom end of that is in the 60s, like the high 60s or the low 60s. So, that honestly, I think gives some credit to where these teams are going to shake out. And hopefully, stacking up some of these wins, if you can do that, helps propel you towards the end of the season. And again, like, I feel like it's a weird thing for me, because I feel like we always talk ranking every single year, just a little bit. We've been so used to it year over end. And I feel excited to talk about that, but I'm keeping my expectations realistic that we are not going to be looking at a top 25. I'd be happy to get a vote. I put out a tweet earlier this week, which apparently was false. So false flag, folks, fake news. The one vote for Cincinnati was left over from last season, and they hadn't updated the poll. Even though they updated the top 25, they didn't update the others receiving votes. So Cincinnati did not, in fact, get one singular vote for the top 25.
I just wanted to know who that man was, and I was like, can you come on our show and tell me why I should believe? I don't think I have the same belief as you right now. So.
And I'm more biased than you, most likely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, who was voting for them after the bowl game? Like, that's what I want.
Who knows? I don't think anybody was voting for them. Maybe they were voting on the upside of having Scott Satterfield. Who knows? Regardless, we mentioned Oklahoma a few times there. There's a possibility for a big noon Saturday game. If you take care of your non-conference, you go 3-0, I think everything's there. The makings are there to just have it happen. And that would be really, really cool.
So it was announced officially as the Fox noon game for that weekend. So that we do know. And like there is precedent for a not so great team being featured on Big Noon Saturday, because the week after Scott Frost was fired, guess who was the host of Big Noon Saturday last year? Nebraska. And guess who they played? Oklahoma. And it was the same week of the season too, week 4. So these context clues are just purely coincidence, but I'm taking it to believe, Nick, that it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, fingers crossed. We'll see, but I think that storyline of new to the conference versus leaving the conference, leaving on being very on top of the conference versus coming in probably closer to the bottom. I could see it. I could see it happen.
And we get to boo the bear again. So, it's a win-win for everybody.
That guy. I got up at 5 a.m. that day to see him give us a new one. And it's just, not a fan.
The man hates Cincinnati, and we'll just leave it at that for him. But I do think that this is a very interesting proposition because, the storyline is definitely there. You have the new team to the Big 12. You have their very first Big 12 game. And that's honestly, I think the coolest part about this is that your introduction to the Big 12 could be the game of the week on, the primetime slot, which would be awesome. And hopefully you take, you keep it close. You sneak a win out somewhere, not hoping for it, not expecting it whatsoever. But hopefully, above all else, you just don't get flat out embarrassed. Welcome to the Big 12. Fuck you. Like, I don't want that. I don't want that.
Yeah, that'd be bad.
If we can get one good half in there, I'll be kind of happy. I'll be happy.
Keep it competitive to the third quarter. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They can pull like 50 to 10 at the end, but
hey, Oklahoma went 6-6 last year. Their defense stunk.
If we get 14-7 at halftime, I'll be like, all right, we can hang. We can hang with these guys.
Yeah. And we talked about this on the over-under show too. But speaking of like Oklahoma's defense there, like we're in a position where I don't think Oklahoma is going to be making any major strides. Everybody's talking it up like they will, but I mean, you're just really betting on Venables being able to turn things around after year one, and, not encountering, I guess they won't have a sophomore slump because they did pretty freaking horrible last year compared to their standards, at least. But regardless, it is what it is. Realignment is over. Oklahoma, Texas, they screwed over pretty much college football in general. So thanks for that. Is the Big 12 just becoming the southern brother of the Big 10?
Now, Justin, I want to clarify. It might not be over. I mean,
well,
as far as we know, it is. But as far as we knew, Oklahoma and Texas were happy here. So we'll see. I mean, we're saying no on Gonzaga and UConn, but the Pac-4 as it is, where do they go? We'll find out. No, I mean, is it the Southern Annex? Maybe. I mean, we got.
Well, let me give you some thoughts.
Sure.
Why? No, you're good. So I was just thinking about this, and I was wondering, we both got 16 teams. Big Ten's got 18 now. I did write this when there was talks that San Diego and Oregon State would be added, and that did not happen. So, but you're right, Nick. Realignment is never forever. These things always change. So you never know.
When you told me about like, oh, you want to be on the show one of these days, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks back, I was like, okay, I'll have this big segment about like, oh, who are we probably going to get? Who are we not going to get like at all? I was like, somebody said Vanderbilt. I was like, there's no way. But like,
they don't even have a finished stadium, and the season starts in like 3 weeks,
exactly.
2 weeks.
There's like a crane in the end zone, but it's just like all these different things, and then come on the show, and it's all pretty much over.
So I'll just read off a couple more notes real quick. We both have schools in Iowa and Ohio, restaurant on opposite sides of the country, north and south. Both have rabid fan bases that don't like the SEC. We both took out the Pac-12 arm in arm, took 4 teams each, like tag teamed them. The only difference, we actually win championships and they don't. So shout out to Baylor and Kansas basketball, TCU football making it to the national title game. When's the last time a Big Ten team got there? Arizona baseball, 2012, won the national title. I don't think Big Ten's ever won a national baseball.
Oh, and don't
title.
forget Oklahoma gymnastics. I'm pretty sure they took it home this year.
Oh, hey, good pull, Nick. There you go.
Yeah, see,
Oh,
I mean, I
wait.
know they're leaving, but
Let's also not forget about the mascot national champion back to
That's
back
right.
is
we
also
go.
home in the Big 12.
yeah, baby.
Brutus
right.
Buckeye sucks. It's such a poor choice. It's not even fun.
I saw the Bearcat more recently than Brutus Buckeye. Where's he hiding? Where's he
Yeah,
at?
well, and Michigan.
They don't have a
What?
mascot.
Like, you don't
That's just
have
a dude.
one. It's
Just
just
a
and-
dude.
I don't even
and
know
they
if it's a
got that ass-
dude.
They got that ass beat by
No,
Big 12 team
they
last year.
they had some mascot thing for the playoffs this year, and like everybody else had their person in a costume, and I think Michigan just had a guy in a like just a band kid.
yeah, yeah. It was funny. Like they,
Just
I
a
don't know.
pick a
They're
little
weird,
player.
man. I don't get why you don't have a mascot. Just put a guy in a Wolverine suit.
It can't be that hard, right? It cannot be that hard.
I mean, I feel like at this point they're just like it's tradition to not have one, and so therefore they think it's like cool to not have a mascot. Like maybe they have like the 12th man mentality where it's like our fans are the mascot.
I guess, but I don't know. It can't be that hard.
They're too highfalutin to have a mascot. There we go.
Yeah, there it
They
is.
think too much of themselves to have any silly mascot to represent our university.
You know what is really interesting is, every conference has bottom feeders, but at least like the bottom half of our conference isn't all also bottom feeders like the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Looking at you, Rutgers, looking at you, Northwestern, looking at you, Illinois, I could keep going, looking at you, Nebraska, Indiana, like the list goes on. It's sad. It's sad. The Big 12 is better. We're just going to put it out there. Truck stop conference, honk, honk, baby. We're making moves. Regardless, I think it is set to be a very interesting next few years too. Looking at if there are any moves made throughout this season. I doubt that happens. I think there's going to be too much focus on just trying to focus on football and win and make sure all that happens. The one thing I did want to ask you guys about specifically on the Pac-4 now, somebody had mentioned this to me kind of offhand was, what happens to the Pac-4? Does the Pac-4 get enveloped? Do they splinter out on their own into the Mountain West? Do they, splinter out into multiple different conferences? Do they try to absorb the Mountain West and rebrand the Mountain West as some new version of the Pac? I would imagine that the Mountain West would probably be like, we're sending you out a life draft, so screw you. You're going to the Mountain West and you're going to like it. I don't know what happens, but I am really curious what your guys' thoughts are because they can't sit like that forever. Something will inevitably happen. It's not going to be sustainable. I think the only other situation is that they go independent, but I can't see all four doing that.
See, I like the Mountain West merger thing. Although I keep hearing from different sources that the Cal and Stanford are like too proud to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Too proud to not play Power 5, and that I don't think that's right. Because I mean, you got Aaron Rodgers out of Cal, you got CMC out of Stanford, but like you haven't really had a big hitter out of either of those guys in a hot minute. I think their best bet overall is to go Mountain West and try and drag them, bring them up with them. But I don't know if they'll have the star power to stay Power 5.
See, I think Stanford and Cal are like, they could probably go independent in every sport, but like all these schools want to play them just because like, oh, it's Stanford and Cal, and the university presidents will love like even just an athletic competition. And I really think they could go like independent or like be student enough to join the Ivy League.
Yeah,
Ivy
join
League expansion.
join
That
Princeton.
would be something. Wouldn't it? Ivy
Princeton's
League
got some great helmets.
expand?
Just join them.
Yeah, exactly. And then Oregon State and Wazoo. I did have a big rant that I planned for today that I scrapped after I learned that a Pac-12 professor at a school advised the conference on its media deal. So I just laughed and then took that out of the show notes. But I will
Can we
say
read that
like,
off though? No, I actually want to read that off because that's just
yeah. Go ahead.
That's
Yeah.
insane. Okay. Thank you, Steve, for sending this because this gave me the biggest laugh out of the day. And also, I've never seen anybody fumble a bag harder. So from at Brett McMurphy, thank you, Brett McMurphy, for all of your tweets and keeping us up to date. You're a saint for that. Specifically, these words on Pac-12's demise from Brady McCullough. George Klivakoff tried blocking UCLA's move to the Big Ten with Cal Regents. Then in October of 2022, ESPN offered the Pac-12, $30 million per school, but a Pac-12 president worked with a professor on his campus who estimated that the school's market value was $50 million per school. So the Pac-12, based on this professor's advice, asked for $50 million per school. And as you can imagine, ESPN said, shove it up your ass.
No way.
Wow.
50 million?
Yes. 50 million for a conference that has like 10 viewers, which include the three of us at 1 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. It's insane. Where they get this, like, well, I guess got, because they don't exist anymore. Where they got this high and mightiness is beyond me. Congratulations, you're on the West Coast. It's beautiful. Nobody cares about you east of the Rockies. Like, they really don't. It's all Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, ACC. Nobody cares about the Pac-12 east of the Rockies.
Oh, yeah. I mean, sorry, go for it.
No, Nick, I want to follow you up.
All right, sure. But I know I've heard about East Coast bias, and it really is the case here, but not intentionally. I mean, it's just so hard to either if you're the Pac-12, you're maybe not Arizona, maybe UCLA, Cal, you either start your game at 9 a.m., try and hit the noon market over, the 1 a.m. market on the East Coast, or you play on Thursdays, Fridays, cut in the high school market, because you just can't compete with a night game. And, USC, as cool as it might be, it's 1 o'clock back in the East Coast where a lot of people are. Like, you just can't compete, and you're not going to get as many viewers, you're not going to get as many good recruits unless you get some real characters out there. Like, it's just, like, I got a soft spot for Washington State because of Mike Leach used to be there, RIP captain. But, unless you got somebody out there, who cares?
Yep.
I couldn't tell you where Oregon State is.
The only reason I've been watching Pac-12 football over the past 5 years, ever since I got in college, was because college football final comes on around like 2:30 after the last Pac-12 game of the night. So I am excited that maybe Pac-12, like college football final, will come on like not at 2 a.m. Eastern, but 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time for me, which is nice. But I do think it's like, it does suck for that reason. Like, I did actually watch some great games. Like last year, Stanford, Oregon State. Like, Stanford went up late. There was no reason to think that Oregon State would come back, but then they just magically pulled one out right at the end and beat Stanford. Obviously, Stanford beating Oregon was a huge part of the Bearcats getting into the college football playoff, as well as Utah beating Oregon that same year. There's been some good Pac-12 moments, and I do think it had a chance, obviously, because there's obviously a lot of people here on the West Coast interested in sports, but like, they just have not been able to provide that quality team that everybody loves. And I think you could probably blame it a little bit on USC, probably blame it a little bit on Oregon not really being fully operational, and that's not really on them. That's kind of their coaches leaving and stuff. But you don't make the premier stage of college football for 6 years, or you just kind of get forgotten, and then they just self-immolated all the time too. I sent Nick a video of like all these Pac-12 teams just losing year after year to finish at like 2 losses, and I'd say that the Big 12 arguably got the Pac-12's best football brand right now. Obviously, USC is there. Not best football brand, best football team. Like,
yes,
on the field, players on the field, guys in uniform, team.
Yeah. Well, and I think the most interesting part is that when you look at the situation in the Pac-12, it doesn't feel like I guess there's some semblance of camaraderie between the teams, but it doesn't feel like you have that in the same way that the Big Ten, the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12, all these other conferences have. I mean, it just feels like these teams are so splintered out and care about their own team, which obviously we've seen with USC and UCLA just going off to the Big Ten, they said, screw it. Like, I mean, we don't need this anymore. It's the same way that Texas and Oklahoma were. They didn't really have any camaraderie with the Big 12. It was just, we always think we're better than the rest of the people here, so we're on our way. I mean, and to be fair, and I'll be completely honest, we felt the same way in the American. We felt that we were above that. So you can understand that from that fan base's perspective. But also, it's really hard for anybody else to care about your team when you, like a USC or a UCLA, don't even care about your own team. Looking at the Pac-12's stadiums, like Cal, Stanford games, looking at, you know, in random like Arizona versus, I don't know, Washington game, just something random, like in the middle of the night, there is like a half full stadium. Like the own people there do not care. And so it's hard for anybody else to see that and be like, there's legitimacy to this. There's a reason why nobody watches the MAC. There's a reason why nobody watches the Mountain West.
Well,
There's a reason why nobody watches these other.
Election night Maction, unmatched.
That is true. That is very fair.
Unmatched.
There is a reason why there's a lot of people who don't watch the G5 games, and it's because there aren't enough people in those stands to show that they care about those games. I will not knock every single team in those conferences. There are a lot of quality teams, a lot of quality fan bases in there, but the Pac-12 was it was a victim of its own fate, because if you can't show out for your own team, nobody else is going to do it for you across the country.
And I think it's tougher there too, because if you're traveling to that game, you know, if you're coming from the East Coast for a non-conference game, let's say Rutgers, like we talked about earlier, that's a long flight. Plus you're 4 hours behind, whatever. Like you're not on, right? Or if you're traveling as those teams, you know, Arizona to West Virginia now, not gonna say Arizona State to West Virginia because that guy doesn't want to go there. You know, so that you're 4 hours, you know, further ahead. Game at noon feels like it's 8 a.m. to you. You're not going to be playing your best game. I mean, even if you take the whole day in the day before, just do nothing but trying to get acclimated, like you're just not. It's so much tougher for you because of the time zones, and there's nothing you can do about that.
Well, I think that is a good point to transition here while we're still talking about the Pac-12 teams to talk about the former Pac-12 teams, Arizona State. Now, we have a local in our midst. Who might that be? I don't know. We talked about Vanderbilt earlier, so I have a local scoop on that. It is that their stadium is not finished. Their end zones look like shit right now, and we are T-minus like 20 days from kickoff, and that's just embarrassing for the SEC. But regardless, Vanderbilt doesn't care because they will play on a high school field to get shit done. Steve, our inside man for Arizona and Arizona State, will now go through giving us a few learnings to some of our new brethren that are coming in 2024.
Yeah, so as someone who is engaged to a girl who graduated from the University of Arizona and who lives here now, I do have a little bit of intel on the locals here. So I'll start with ASU because we call them ASPU in this house. They are a little bit of a fair weather fan base, if I'm being truly honest. I was able to go to 2 basketball games, and I do plan on going to 1 football game later this year. So they played UCLA for the first basketball game I went to. It was nice, but their basketball arena, which was ranked ahead of UC's on a random poll today by a Texas Tech guy, I have some beef with that guy.
Me too.
Because he keeps calling our name wrong, and then he also rated us behind a stadium that has not been updated since it was built in 1974. So literally, like I'm Justin, I'm tall. I barely fit in the rows. Like my knees were budging up against the next row in front of me.
Of course.
So that's just a little bit of all you need to know about them. The first game against UCLA, pretty full. UCLA top 5 team at the time this year. The second game was against Utah. There may have been 4,000 people there, and that's maybe. So not the greatest basketball fan base there. Football also as well. You know, it can be fair weather. There's a lot of things to do in Phoenix, of course. Suns are pretty good. We and the Cardinals and D-backs decide to be good. They do have a pretty big fan base, but I think with Dillingham, the new coach at ASU, he's a local kid. He's hired a lot of local people to be on his staff. I do think he can do something there. It's just like they have not been to the Rose Bowl since 1996, which is, as I learned from listening to a bunch of like Pac-12 people joining the Big 12 on podcast this week, that's like the bellwether mark for people before the playoff, for the Pac-12 and Big Ten. That's just how they decided they had a good season if they got to the Rose Bowl, which obviously makes sense. You know, you win your conference championship.
Well, they're not going to have the Rose Bowl anymore.
Well, and then Utah gets credit for those 2 Rose Bowls, even though they lost both of them. But you know, they still put those roses in their Twitter names. Good on them.
Good on them.
So yeah, so ASU, there is like definitely some potential there. One of the largest schools in the country, obviously. Everybody knows about what Michael Crow did, and I think if you want to garner favor with an ASU fan, if you run into one in the wild, just say, you know what, Michael Crow and Ray Anderson stink, and they'll be like, I agree with you. So you'll find some accord with them. Now, you know, obviously there is also the University of Arizona, 2 hours south of the main capital of the state. By the way, just a fun fact real quick, ASU's football stadium has hosted multiple Fiesta Bowls, national championship games, and one Super Bowl as well. So pretty cool history there. Now, to my future wife's alma mater, U of A, better known as the Harvard of the West, Tucson, the city, 90 minutes south of the state capital, but might be the best city in the state. Their fans are diehards for basketball, but love their football too. Their food scene is unmatched across the entire 48th state of this union. Safe to say that UC and Arizona fans may have a couple things in common, but that's just me. I really enjoyed Tucson. You and us 3 are actually taking the trip to BYU later this year, and we've talked about maybe going down to Tucson for a game. They have a famous bridge down there too, so they're going to compete with Iowa State in this conference for
it's happening.
Bridge.
We're doing it, boys. We're going to do it. We're going to the bridge and we're going to the game. We're going to see the Pac-12. I have to see a Pac-12 game in person before it literally dies off into existence so I can tell my grandkids, I remember when the Pac-12 was a thing. You know, I remember when we fucking killed it.
I remember when I was young and I watched Pac-12 games on ESPN. Okay, Grandma, time to go to bed.
What's ESPN?
I love that soon. I love that meme. It's great. So basketball games, I would recommend anyone who's interested in coming out to Arizona to go to a basketball game in Tucson. I did get to go this year when they played Oregon. Azuolas Tubelis went off for 40 points. It was a Thursday night game, and the building was rocking. Like, no late arrivals. Everyone was there early. People in Tucson love basketball, man. Football is obviously building something right now. Jed Fish getting some big recruits. They're pretty high up already in the Big 12 recruiting rankings for next year. Baseball is also good. Women's basketball on the rise as of late. Arizona is a sneaky, like, huge college town. You know, Cincinnati has pro teams, but we're only a city of 250 million people in the metro. In the city, and like 2 million in the metroplex.
250 million people in Cincinnati.
Say, that's like most of America. Let's go.
Biggest city in the nation.
Ohio always has been.
It's all Ohio.
But then, you know, Tucson is like, they have 1 million people within the city, and then obviously there's no pro teams down there, so it's all basically people who love U of A or love the city and then become U of A fans just like that. So it's a big party. I would recommend coming to a U of A game instead of a ASU game for anyone who wants to visit. Go to McHale. Definitely, the basketball scene there is unmatched. Come on out, get some green chilies, see what sports are like in the desert, and enjoy a 75-degree day in the middle of January.
Now, Steve, I just have one question for you. I've never been to Tucson, but isn't that one where that place with that one show, Sons of Tucson, that terrible Fox show, was that was set there, right?
Yes, but also, Nick, they have a car made by Hyundai named after the city. So I mean, counterbalance, you know,
Well, there you go.
Honestly, kind of a shitty car. No.
yeah. See, I'm not going to defend Tucson, the city. I'm just saying that the food scene is great, that university is cool, and like the tailgating and partying and stuff is fun. Like Tucson, the city, but we'll just have another discussion another time. You know, we'll have to bring on like Wildcat Agenda for that big Tucson dad. But
I have one question for you, Steve, and I want to put you on the fence, and I'm going to put some pressure on you. So, for your experience in a U of A game, was it better or worse than a shootout game?
I mean,
he hesitated.
You know,
he hesitated. Kill him.
Oh no!
Tar and feather
Actually,
him.
Justin, I'm moving to the Arizona Wildcats podcast. I'm abandoning. That's why I brought Nick on. No,
Oh,
Passing the
shit.
torch from it.
yeah. No, it was more fun just because I just got to just watch a game, be a fan, not really care.
Right.
And obviously Arizona won without playing any defense. So that Arizona team should have been a lot better than it was last year. They got bounced obviously as a 2 seed in the first round. Justin, it's a real shame to see a 2 seed get bounced in the first round like that. No 2 seed from the city of Cincinnati would ever get bounced in the first round.
Absolutely
not the first round.
No.
Second round, we don't have to talk about that. First,
No, that's
round,
like a Michigan State problem or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a Mizzou problem. Yeah.
That's anybody's problem except for us. Well, Nick, you brought up earlier the idea of some of the new rivalries that might be shaking out in the Big 12. Of course, there's going to be a couple transplanted rivalries coming in. Of course, with our 4 group coming from the American, and then, and of course, BYU on the outside there. And then, of course, some more coming in with the next group of 4 from the 4 corner states. So what do you got for us?
Yeah, so some of these are a little bit more simple. Some of these are a little more complex. Now, Colorado, off the bat, didn't really have anything for you since you were here. You left, you came back. So you probably already have your things. Also, Houston, you're not going to get a whole lot of love here because you already get the Texas teams. Like, you had however many
and
years.
There's no fans of Houston either. So,
Yeah.
they don't have enough to care about to be.
No, exactly.
And well,
But,
maybe Colorado's rivalry can be with all of the former Big 8 teams who are angry with Colorado still. Who knows?
Yeah, all right. So I'm thinking first off, just Arizona versus Kansas State, the Wildcat Cup. Just very easy, very simple. Something just you both got the same name. And same with BYU and Houston. They're both Cougars. Figure something out. Somebody's got to come out on top of that. And now for basketball, I'm kind of thinking we got 5 cats in this conference. We've got Bearcats, 2 Wildcats, 2 Cougars. I'm thinking y'all play each other regular season, right? Whoever is the best record regular season gets to take home the King of the Jungle trophy. And then, just wave that over somebody, get some crowns up in there. Now, here's one that we've always kind of had for the past few years, the American, but never really had a real name for just because they're a little too far away. But UC versus UCF, we play them a lot. I personally don't really like them. But we both share space, especially Neil Armstrong. So I'm thinking the Cape Canaveral Classic. We'll get a big old astronaut helmet like Neil Armstrong wore because he launched off right by there, but also he taught here, from Ohio. So we'll finally put a name to that thing, get ourselves a trophy, and make it official.
UCF fans are going to be very angry about that. They're like, what do you have to do with space?
Space, you can eat it.
Our guy Bearcat Matt responded is like, maybe we should have some space themed uniforms because Neil Armstrong taught here, and they did not like that. I even had the boiler like the Purdue uniforms guy DM me and be like, what the hell is this? Because obviously Neil went there and that's like their favorite son. So, if you ever want to get in anyone's side, there's probably like 15 people that claim space. Just say Neil Armstrong taught at UC. People will lose their shit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Does UC actually own space, Justin?
Ooh.
UCF owns the Hilton franchise.
I mean,
isn't John Glenn from Ohio?
Well, okay, but Neil Armstrong, was he not
Cambridge.
Also born in Ohio?
They both were born in Ohio, both John Glenn and Neil Armstrong.
And was Dayton, Ohio, not the birthplace of aviation, which means that honestly, if you can't get to space without flying, which means that technically if you can't fly, which they weren't doing in any of these other places, and it was born in Ohio, I think Cincinnati owns space.
It's all Ohio.
Law of transit
really
property.
Is all Ohio.
It's all Ohio. That's going to be the name of this episode for sure. It's all Ohio.
It's all Ohio? Always has.
So I got a few more here, and this one kind of goes by Ohio, but just doesn't hit it. So we got, because Arizona State, what's his name, Crow, said, I'm not going to Morgantown. I found something a little further than him. I found his hated rival, Arizona, is further away from West Virginia, but they share a highway. That's going to be the Route 60 Rumble. All right, that's the furthest 2 teams, but bring them together, make it special.
I like
that could be cool.
If they're going to be flying this far, you got to make it worthwhile. Now, this one I don't really have a great name for, but 2 defenders of justice, the Knights and the Cowboys, in ancient times or not so ancient. Gotta have something for UCF versus OK State. You know, they don't.
Now,
Oklahoma State doesn't
what
get a whole
if-
lot of love.
What if Nick? What if UCF is contracted to wear their space uniforms in it, and you get like the Daniel Craig 2009 classic Cowboys and Aliens?
Ooh,
That-
Cowboys and Aliens. That'd be
That
good.
specific movie sponsors the rivalry for no reason at all.
That'd be good.
Yeah,
That'd be good.
But yeah,
And speaking of them, I got
yeah,
one
go
more. And it's about two people that we don't really like. It is Arizona State and UCF. Now, I got nothing against the people at Arizona State, except for the leadership. People at UCF is a different story. We're gonna go with the conference villain classic. You know, until you can shake that reputation, you're gonna be the conference villain, and we're all gonna hate you for it. So, conference villain classic. See who's the worst.
I like the idea there. See, the only issue is that I think you could also add Utah in there for like a good old
Ooh.
three-way matchup. Like
Yeah.
Utah,
Yeah.
UCF, and Arizona State, they all suck and they're all like the bottom feeders of the earth. Let them all like play each other on like a three-sided, like weird piece-shaped field and see who can like come out on top. I don't know how that would work. We're going to come up with a new sport for football just so these three bottom feeders can play with each other. That kind of sounded weird.
I like
Yes,
that.
sir. Yes, sir.
Nick, I also saw a rivalry come up. Somebody from Texas Tech tried to say that Arizona and them should be the Haboob rivalry, but
Ooh.
another fun fact about Tucson, there are a lot of hills, and there's not as many Haboobs there just because of the natural low spot, and it's surrounded by mountains, of course. But you know who does have Haboobs and monsoons? Arizona State. So I'm going to say that ASU and Texas Tech is the Haboob classic.
Whoa,
and also,
for the non-weather nerds, what is a
sorry.
Haboob? Some people may
So-
not be familiar with a Haboob, Steve.
so obviously Texas Tech, Arizona, both in the desert. Actually, all the Texas Tech fans, they have cactus in their emoji, cacti in their emojis in their Twitter handles. So, you know, when it's hot outside, there's not much rain coming down in the desert. Cold winds come through. You know, it would usually create a tornado in some places, but it actually merges together and you get like a 30-minute pop-up thunderstorm that is like looks like all death is coming down upon you. And then it moves out of the way and you're good. So but yeah, it apparently it happens in Texas Tech too, and in Lubbock too. So I would say that's the Haboob rivalry. And then another one with like the new ones. Obviously, we got the Holy War, which I think is great. I was
Who's
going to
that?
say that's BYU in Utah.
Oh, of course. Yeah, duh.
I was going to say that there should, you know, the rumble in the Rockies between BYU and Colorado should be a lot of fun. Apparently, Colorado and Utah tried to force a rivalry. It didn't really work out. But that one would be a fun one. My last one, obviously, I think we need to come up with a name for the rivalry between Cincinnati and West Virginia. I will just propose to you the Bob Huggins drunken Bob Huggins DUI class. No, I can't even say it. I'm sorry.
The Huggins heroes.
the Bob Huggins recycling bowl. Yeah, that's bad.
The
Sorry,
the
Bob.
Huggyville Classic. We could call it
No,
that.
we
Well, we could lump K State in there too.
Well, the trophy
Oh,
is
yeah.
just a bottle of Woodford that he signs. Yeah, that's true. I guess we
An
could-
empty
well,
bottle.
yeah, because he drank it all. Well, no, he's the trophy actually, and someone's just got to take care of him. But
That's a punishment, not a
That's-
trophy.
well, yeah, the loser of the triumvirate
Oh,
has to take care of Bob for the year.
The end of an era, gentlemen. The end of an era.
Oh, Bob Huggins. Oh my God.
Oh, there's got to be another one in there somewhere. All right, hold on. Let me. You know what we need to do? We need to make a spinner wheel, and just like put two teams together
Ooh.
and pick them at random. Let's see. Hold on. Let me do this.
I mean, Iowa State is the Cyclones. We've got the Cyclones hockey team. Maybe
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
like,
Well,
I don't know.
a little bit. Yeah, I could see it.
Nah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
a stretch.
yeah.
That's a stretch.
I mean,
They have a bridge. We have the Roebling Bridge. You know.
All right,
Yeah,
so here's some other ones I've also heard proposed that are
Okay.
off the top of my head. So Colorado and UCF fans have been going back and forth, battle for the black and gold. That could be an interesting one. but also that's
See, I
kind of
want
just
these to
like,
be funny though. Like those
Yeah.
are just like
It's just like,
That's
we
true.
have black and
I mean,
gold,
we could just
you have black and gold.
we could like say the same thing for Texas Tech and Cincinnati, the battle for red and black. Like,
Right.
you know, who owns
Eh.
it?
The Tommy Tuberville Bowl. Come on now.
Yeah.
There we go.
The
working.
Senator Tommy Tuberville.
Senator Tommy, insider trading Tommy Tuberville. I have to find this
Yeah.
tweet. If you guys haven't heard about this, it's actually crazy. Like, there's legit like case for insider trading on Tommy Tuberville right now. I have to look at more detail. Maybe I'll put a tweet up of it. But yeah,
He's been telling people to go to hell and get a job. So.
Tommy
Yeah.
Tuberville, as seen in The Blind Side, Tommy Tuberville.
Oh yeah.
as seen in The Blind Side, where O'Hare is not a child of that family by law. Blind Side.
Yeah,
If you guys
that's all
did also
coming out.
not see that, more recent news.
There's a lot of stuff
The-
coming out about that case. Well, we'll
Wars-
see.
Sad.
Sorry, the Tuohy saw that Britney Spears case. They're like, oh, that's a great idea. Sorry, I've gone off the rails. So
So, Justin, you got that spinner there?
my
Or are we
apologies.
going on next topic?
I'm just gonna throw. I got the list up here, so I can just pick
Sure,
one
sure.
at random. All right. Give me number 1 through 10.
5.
Seven.
Okay. 5 and 7. All right. We have K-State and TCU.
Ooh, purple and you don't really want to do a color one.
What the Broadcat Bowl? I don't know.
It hurts when you don't really know a whole lot about those schools. Like, I like them. I like Super Frog
Well,
and
I
him
thought the vein of
deadlifting
this
400 or but like
Bringing the new schools in and having them actually
right.
have
Like, they probably
rivalries.
already have something.
How about BYU and TCU?
Well, they're both. Isn't TCU or is it
The
Baylor? That's
Junior
like
Holy War.
Mormon, right? They're both Mormon, right?
No,
The
Or
Horny
very
Bowl?
TCU is just Christian. Baylor is Baptist.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah. You could do the Horny Bowl. Oh, soaking over there in Utah. Is
Yeah.
apparently. Ooh, the Horny Bowl, man. My goodness.
All right,
boy.
last one. Let's do our friends at Iowa State and got to be a new one. Iowa State and Cincinnati. We're gonna play every year.
Sure.
What could you? I know you said the Cyclone Bowl, but we need what's?
That's,
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Iowa State.
We
What
could do
you guys
Iowa
got
State
going
and
on?
Kansas. Battle of the Mid.
Oh man, we're not trying to make enemies here. I like
No.
those guys. I like those guys in Kansas. Shout out to the
What
Kansas
about
boys.
Cincinnati and Iowa? Well, Nick, what's the highway that gets to Iowa? from
Oh,
Cincinnati?
to Iowa. Oh, that's a good point. I think we
mean,
take 50 over there.
I guess we can't do.
You don't wanna do 'em
Oh
all.
no,
no,
50
it's-
goes way too south. 50 goes through Kansas. Technically, we could do Kansas and Cincinnati would be like the Route 50 bowl.
Yeah.
Let's see. Route 50. I'm gonna
Does 50 not also go through? I guess it doesn't go through Morgantown.
Well,
I know that goes through
the
West
whole
Virginia.
city.
no, it goes through West Virginia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
think
don't
it
think
goes
it goes
straight.
through West Virginia. Okay, I just want to come up with one that's like this Iowa State Cincinnati one should be our fun $5 bits of broken chair one. So
Right.
what's something funny that we can
I'm also looking at West Virginia and BYU, and I think you could do Blue Mountain State.
Ooh.
The Blue Mountain State Bowl. You've got
That'd be
two
good.
blue teams that love the mountains.
Love the mountains. Yeah. And
I like
BYU has blue on their mountain.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. I like that.
Bad
That's good.
Castle.
Blue Mountain
Alright.
State Bowl, BYU and West Virginia coming to you probably next year.
The
Do they
Thad
play this
Castle
year?
tumble.
That's a good
BYU.
question.
Let's look it up.
All right, Steve. I know you got something in the tank. Iowa State, Cincy.
I am just gonna say that this is like the light beer bowl or something like that, and then we just like obviously the trophy is just the winning school's choice of beer. Ours would be Cincy Light, of course. Ames would be Busch Light, but I feel like we can do more than that, but it's a starting point.
Let's also make it known for sure. I put this tweet out a while ago, but Iowa State fans and whatever brewery is brewing the Ames lager, you're not fooling anybody. We know for a damn fact that is Busch Light underneath that wrap.
We know what it is.
We know what it is. I think that's an interesting juxtaposition because, like, Cincinnati fans, there's so many beers in Cincinnati, and there's not really like one dominant one. Like, Rheingeist is popular, of course, but there's not like a dominant lager where everybody's like, yeah, this is like, a Busch Light kind of city. This is a whatever, town. I think like Cincy Reigns can just like pull in the whole thing, and like Cincy Light is just going to be the dominant tailgate beer for everybody. There's no question about that. Like, it's already been moving off shelves pretty quick. There's been people like myself who live out of state that are like telling somebody else, go buy it for me so I can have it. It's the way of the world, man. Cincy Light is going to take over the entire state of Ohio.
Yeah, I was at a few Clifton bars a few weeks back, having a responsible time. And there were lots of deals on pitchers of Cincy Light. So I think if they just keep, they really like just get it out there, at least that first few months, just make sure people know this is it. This is our beer. I mean,
I just had a great idea. You know what we should do? We should like find some like frat party. We should find some frat party at OSU and give them a bunch of cases of Cincy Light and wrap them in something else, and everybody's gonna be like, oh my god, this is the most awesome drink ever. They're gonna pull off the thing and be like, no, little brother got us.
I like that.
But then you got to give stuff to OSU. Do you really want to do that?
No.
You charge them for it, and then
yes, charge them twice the price for every single can, which is still a very reasonable price for a quality lager.
I agree.
Yeah.
I like that. Here's my last one that I think we can do, because I was gonna pass this to our friends at Texas Tech, but it'll have to wait. But maybe we can do some sort of tortilla bowl between Texas Tech and Cincinnati. But it's like they just have tortillas and we just use them for Cholitos. So it could be like the chimichanga Cholito bowl or something like that. And I don't know. The food ones don't really work out, but or we just come up with something stupid. Well, okay, here we go. Cincinnati, Porkopolis, of course. Iowa, known as a farm state. What about like something like the Floyd of Rosedale, where it's a big pig? We just
the corn-fed bowl. Got corn in Iowa. We got corn eaters. Here, I mean, for the pigs
there's
and all
corn
that.
in Ohio too. So,
there is, but Okay, all right, that's a work in progress. We got our.
We'll have to come back to the listeners with some more polished ideas. This was
or whenever Iowa State, whenever those guys come around, we can talk to those guys, find out what they want here. We can work it out.
That's right.
We're on amiable terms. That's right.
That's fair. Well, okay.
How about this? Because Iowa State, their basketball arena is Hilton Arena, and UCF,
yes,
is
yes,
the Hilton managers. The battle for Hilton.
That's it.
The Hilton Bowl. You heard it here first, folks. Steve has dubbed the battle between Iowa State and UCF the Hilton Bowl, and that is beautiful. That is the nightcap right there, folks.
Shout out to Godfrey for naming the Hilton Night Managers. One of my favorite trips that will live on forever.
Absolutely. Well, Nick, thank you for joining us. This has been a very fun episode, having an extra Maurer in the party here. It's been a good time talking with you guys. I think we've got a lot of good ideas in there. Maybe we'll have to churn it out into some more actionable content. But for the listeners, thank you as well for sticking around through the calculated parts and the dumbassery as well. We appreciate you coming to us as always. Hopefully we're your favorite Bearcats podcast. And if we are, share us with your friends. Make sure to follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of our platforms, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, the whole 9 yards. We love the Bearcats and we love repping them, and we're very excited for this Big 12 season. So we want to give you all the content that we can. So be on the lookout for that. As for myself, for Steve, for Nick, thank you guys for joining us, and we will talk to you soon.